Hey Cloud Gamers, so today I am having a look at Death Stranding on Shadow PC and Geforce Now. With Geforce Now on the left and Shadow PC on the right. I'd expect Geforce Now to pull ahead here, as I would expect with this type of game that I would get a 2080 rig of some kind, but we'll have to wait and see. Starting with a load test here from a cold start. One thing that I have noticed about Death Stranding is it does seem to be quite quick to get to the title screen, but then loading the actual game takes a long time. So once we're past here, I will speed up the footage to get past the loading screen. Don't forget to like and subscribe this channel to stay up to date with all of the latest across cloud gaming. And Shadow PC is in to the desktop there at 120. And Geforce Now is just loading the title credits there. It looks like Geforce Now is going to be first to the title screen here, and there we go at 138. And the game is starting to load. Still waiting on Shadow PC to get to that title screen there. So Shadow's PC lagging behind on the load speed in general. And finally to the title screen at 206. So nearly 30 seconds behind. Let's see how quick it is into the actual game. As I said, it takes a long time to load the game, so I've sped this footage up 500%. Shadow PC was nearly 30 seconds behind. Let's see if it can pull it back. Now, I did get the Geforce Now 2080C rig, so I would expect it to outperform the GTX 1080 here, and it should also have more RAM than Shadow PC on the boost here. And there we go, Geforce Now finally into the game and playable at 5 minutes 2. As I said, it takes a long time to load this game. And there we go, Shadow PC in at 5:15. So it really did pull the time back there, close the gap to only 13 seconds. So that's quite impressive considering the Shadow PC boost here should be in theory half that of the 2080C rig on Geforce Now. Moving it over to the graphics comparison then. As you can see here, both are set to very high, and I've not enabled DLSS for comparison as Shadow PC does not support it. As I said, Geforce Now was using the 2080C rig, so I would expect it to outperform the 1080 GTX on Shadow PC here. Starting off with some side-by-side footage, it's looking pretty close. I would have expected to see a bigger difference here as we freeze at the bridges building. Geforce Now does seem to have some better highlights around the metal there, but in general it's looking a little bit brighter and potentially washed out in the background there. Again, that 2080 I would have expected to show a big difference here. And as we look at the terrain in the background, again it seems like Shadow PC has better contrast here. You can see the highlights in the rocks and the tip of the mountain there, and it looks quite clean. So moving over to just Geforce Now, because the frames per second in Steam are so small, it's hard to kind of transport it into the center. We are holding a much higher 100 frames per second here. As we're running around here, it is dipping into the 80s, but generally it is holding the higher frame rate. And it does look very good. It's smooth. The strands in the distance there you can see up in the sky are clear. And the contrast and the lighting looks good. So we'll switch over to the Shadow PC version then, same thing. We can see that we're already dipped down into the 70s and 80 frames per second in that photo mode. But all in all, it is looking good. As we start running around and moving, we see the dips there down into the 60s. And it is struggling to hold that 60 frames per second on moving around, but it still looks fairly smooth with the occasional little stutters there as you see the frames dropping below that 60 frames per second. As we stop here, we can see things are looking very clear again, and if we do that side by side with Geforce Now, it's very difficult to tell them apart. Which I'm quite surprised about. I really expected Geforce Now to shine here, especially in such a graphically intense game of Death Stranding. On its own, it does look absolutely fantastic. It's only because I'm comparing these side by side that you can tell there's difference. So this is either some great optimization for Death Stranding, or the lack of power of the 2080C being shown up here by the GTX 1080. As we come round here and look at the shield building, again we see that kind of washed out effect on Geforce Now, whereas Shadow PC does look a lot cleaner here in my opinion. I prefer the look of Shadow PC overall, and this pains me because I thought playing on a 2080 rig that I would get a much better graphics performance. This might be outweighed by being able to use DLSS, but as far as I'm aware, that's not currently enabled on Geforce Now. I'm sure we'll get a blog post about that later when that is supported. Looking out over the water here and the mountains again, the contrast and vibrancy does just seem better on Shadow PC. And I'm not quite sure why Geforce Now is looking so washed out. Let me know what you think in the comments about whether Shadow PC's quality over frames per second would be enough for you, or whether you still go for the frames per second and that slightly more washed out look. I will be doing more tests on these and some other rigs to see what looks best. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Cloud Gaming Extreme for all of the latest across all cloud gaming platforms. We compare all the different platforms for you so you can pick the right one for you. I'll leave you with the last little bit of footage from Geforce Now here in full, and I will see you next time.